Hello, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for stopping by this morning, afternoon, evening for some of you. As you're trickling in, feel free to put your name and where you're tuning into this for this fine day. You can put it in the chat. Maybe you can also put how the weather is right now where you're at.
Okay, y'all. So what we're gonna do is just basically wait until more folks start coming in, and then once we have a good sizable group, we'll basically get started.
Okay, everybody coming in, feel free to drop your name, where you're tuning in from, and the weather where you're at right now. Ooh, thunderstorms. I wish it would thunderstorm. Maybe it would
Right.
just rain, actually.
I would love some rain right now too.
74 degrees, man. That's like a paradise.
It's gonna get hotter. It's gonna hit 86 today because it's barely 10, and like the hottest day is like at 1 or 2, and it's basically gonna be like 80 something. That's hot.
Well, it's 110 here, and that's a nice day in Vegas. So I don't think you can complain.
Welcome everyone. Welcome. If you can just leave your name, where you're based at, in the weather, in the group chat, in the Zoom meeting group chat, excuse me, just to kind of let us know who's here and whatnot. And then we're gonna go ahead and gonna start in maybe a couple of seconds or whatnot.
All right, Miguel, I believe if you want to get started, we should be good.
Well, awesome. So hi everybody. My name is Miguel Angel. I use he, him, and his pronouns. I am the Climate Investment Associate here at dream.org. First of all, we want to say thank you to everyone for joining our webinar/panel today. We have two great panelists that we believe they're going to share some insightful knowledge and honestly just an insight of just kind of understanding financial institutions that center, green energy, clean energy, and whatnot. So, again, welcome to Grassroots Green, turning everyday decisions into community power. It's really good to see everyone here. I'm really glad that everybody's here. So, to get started, we would like to show off our two amazing panelists. They're amazing. We love them. Great in the climate space. So, I'm going to go ahead and first introduce Justin Conway. He's the VP of Investment Partnerships at Calver Impact. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit about him so folks can kind of get an understanding of him. So Justin Conway is VP of Investment Partnerships at Calver Impact, an impact investment firm helping people and institutions invest for racial, gender, economic, and climate justice. Justin leads the Community Investment Note Program, is Chief Impact Officer of the Cut Carbon Note, is co-head of business development for the Mission Driven Bank Fund, and manages the investor relations team that has supported over 20,000 investors and financial professionals on their impact investing journeys. He also sits on the staff investment committee and leads Calver Impact's subsidiary investment advisor in providing customized portfolio services to institutional investors. So that's Justin. So give him a little round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then for our next panelist, the amazing Bonnie Gurry. So Bonnie Gurry is CEO and co-founder of Green Portfolio, the climate fintech engine empowering millennials to make climate-friendly investment choices. With 17 years of climate leadership expertise, Bonnie has held the position of North American Clean Energy Lead at BASF and Renewable Energy Resources and Technology Engineer at the New York Power Authority. As well as a respected technologist and leader, Bonnie was awarded her first patent at the age of 17 and recently led market and financial research at PERC. She earned a BS in mechanical engineering from Columbia University, an MS in mechanical engineering from Caltech, and an MBA from the New York Stern School of Business. And then just to give a little insight of her company, so Green Portfolio empowers people to invest with climate purpose. They use proprietary ratings to analyze your portfolio for climate impacts and then basically connects you with value-aligned financial advisors using their SEC-registered AI-powered matching engine. So that's basically their company. So just want to give them a quick little round of applause. So again, thank you so much for joining us on this amazing day. Alrighty, so in order to get our time started today, we're going to go ahead and start with the questions. Okay, so for our opening questions, can each panelist briefly share their perspective on the importance of understanding where their money is invested, particularly for low-income individuals? I'll go ahead and also post this in the group chat just so folks can have that question. But yeah, anybody can go ahead and then I'll just let all of you just take the stage.
Yeah, I'd love to start off with that question. It's kind of core of why Green Portfolio exists. We think people should see their money, whether it's sitting in a bank, it's in an investment portfolio, whether it's what insurance provider you use, like every way that you use your money can also be a way that you could be having further climate impact. It's not something a lot of people have thought about, but I think it's becoming more common. People have heard of, universities divesting from oil and gas, or perhaps a pension fund, etc. You are your own endowment. Your money also has power, and collectively, our money really does also have even more of impact. So we really like the first thing we'd love to do when we talk to people about Green Portfolio and our mission is just to help you kind of reframe your mindset to think that like this is something that it's a tool you could be utilizing to have a lot of impact from a climate perspective. It's kind of like voting with your dollars. So it's a great place to start when you're just starting to think about ways that you can be more impactful than just recycling or, the more common things we hear about when it comes to managing your day-to-day actions for climate.
Yeah, I agree. And Bonnie and Miguel, this is great to be here with you today. But I think we're in complete alignment with what Bonnie said. And how you spend, save, and invest your dollars is one of the biggest ways that you support or starve the world you want to live in. So if you care about social justice and climate justice, if you care about whether big corporations benefit or communities that are going to benefit, or whether the wealthy get wealthier, or you're supporting a more equitable society, all of those things, of course, you care about your planet, then how you spend, save, and invest your money is one of the ways that you can have the greatest impact. However much money you have, where you're keeping it is either making a positive or negative impact every day. And as Bonnie was mentioning, I think people increasingly can see and understand how they kind of spend their dollars matter, right? You can choose to buy organic produce or maybe the green car because it's more immediate, but not as many folks choose to pay attention to how they save and invest their money, right? Some of us will spend our money at the local farmers market and support all these great local businesses, and that's great. But they might be using a mainstream bank credit card to do that. They've thought of, they're thinking that they've done a good job spending that $30 today in their local economy, but not how the $30,000 they have in their bank and investment accounts is sitting with big corporations, perhaps, that are not aligned with their values and could be harming people and planet. But as Bonnie would say, better options exist.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, just kind of sticking on that same piggybacking off of that. So the next question on that, because I feel folks are also very curious on that, and honestly with me as well. But so how can we educate ourselves about where the current financial institutions are doing with our money in terms of investments? So I'll go ahead and post that question in the group chat. And again, whoever wants to go ahead and answer it, take the stage.
So I always like to take a step back before we start talking about investments, and I would like to also just throw out that this is not professional investment advice. This is not advice for you. Please don't take it that way. This is kind of, we're just having a general conversation. Just got to throw a legal disclaimer out there. But I think it's always better to talk to people first about where they're banking. I think it's easier to comprehend how that has follow-on impact before you start thinking about investments, which are more complicated. So like when you choose where to bank, you're kind of choosing where to invest to some degree, because your money at the bank doesn't just sit there in a safe waiting for you to come get it, right? They take your money and they make loans at the bank, or they do other kinds of activities with it. So being able to know, what your money is doing once they put it into the general fund, essentially, it is one of the most, I think, easiest to grasp ways to see how you can start having a better impact. And if you don't know what your bank is up to, like Green Portfolio, we do a really good job, I think, of going through and looking at the loan portfolios of different banking institutions and figuring out exactly, what are they actually spending your money on? What are they investing in? What are the projects that they are putting their time and effort into funding? And you can be everywhere from like a bank where all they do really is like EV loans and solar, all the way to ones where a significant portion of their loan portfolio is with oil and gas companies or exploration and things like that. So I think that's always a really good place to kind of ground yourself first, is think about where you're putting your money in just for regular banking. It's a good start. I know, Justin, you want to start chewing on investments, which is another way you can have even more impact with your money.
Yeah, I think I would agree, Bonnie, that I think for most folks, starting with your bank or credit union, kind of where you're banking is really important. And I think the ones that are going to be more transparent and community oriented, you probably can ask them and see on their websites kind of what they're investing in. But if you walk into many big banks and ask them what they're doing with or where the money's going, most of it's not staying local. Most of the folks there wouldn't really be able to answer that question. And, they aren't really incentivized to be transparent necessarily about where it is beyond kind of meeting their regulatory requirements. So I think it is a good action step for folks that care about communities and climate to, do some research to understand where their money is, sleeping at night, how it's being used. And unfortunately, much of the research on the large banks show a lot about financing fossil fuel companies and projects that are harming our climate and communities. And so there are some ways that we can put pressure on those banks to be better. And sometimes that has organized, and we've seen some of the major banks make commitments to stop financing private prisons. but especially on kind of the financing of fossil fuels, then, you know, the research from Rainforest Action Network and Sierra Club's annual report just came out on the big banks, and you know, the findings are pretty grim, from many banks stepping back from their climate commitments that were made years ago, and you know, continuing to increase the financing of fossil fuels. So they're better options out there, and ones that are supporting your local community and being transparent about how they're using the money that you entrust with them.
Perfect, perfect. So kind of staying on that topic as well, especially centering around financial institutions, and I think this question literally is perfect for the next discussion. So what steps can financial institutions take to improve transparency regarding their investment practices, but especially for their clients? The one thing I will add is, and maybe if both of you can give like a perspective of both traditional and non-traditional banks, so maybe we can have like an idea of like, okay, how does a traditional bank do it, and how does a green-centered bank do it? But here, I'll go ahead and drop the question, and then again, take the stage, all yours.
Well, I mean, having transparency to begin with would be a great place to start. The fact that we have to rely upon organizations like Rainforest Action Network or Sierra Club, who do a lot of legwork to figure out, because what they're doing is, it's not that they're reading all the bank reports as so much as they are going to the end project. So tar sand exploration project in Canada or something like that, and figuring out, they're like sleuthing out what banks actually lent to that project. And they're doing this at different projects across the world, and then building backwards to figure out what bank is doing what, right? Some banks do have more transparency. You can actually see exactly what they're up to, but most of them, it's pretty difficult to actually know who is funding what. So I think any way we could encourage legislators or other entities that have the ability to put pressure on financial institutions and publicly traded companies, and to some degree private companies like we saw in California, to have more transparency on this issue, will actually be able to tackle it. And then being an informed consumer on the other side, like making it so that, okay, they put all this information out, do something with it, right? Choose a better provider, or at least yell at your own bank, something. If you're unwilling to switch, at least let them know you are watching and you're unhappy. Because the good banks, the green banks, are very transparent about what they're doing, because they're proud of it, right? They feel no need to hide it, because they are able to see their own impact in their local communities, and on occasion throughout the world for some of the larger ones, but most of them are quite local. But yeah, I think just general transparency would be a first step. It's very difficult for the average consumer to know, and that's like one reason why, you know, we came into being, was to try to make it a little easier.
Yeah, I agree. You know, beyond the really in-depth research that some groups are having to do to kind of figure out where money is going at major banks, and the required reporting that they do, you know, certainly banks and credit unions can disclose what they're investing in, and those that are proud of what they're doing and are more impact oriented, I think we see a lot more from them versus perhaps, you know, just I don't know, side philanthropic initiative at a major bank. It's really hard to see kind of where the overwhelming majority of their assets are really going. But maybe just take it, since your question, I think, was about financial institutions, so a little bit broader than where we bank. If we're talking about other investments like mutual funds and ETFs, I mean, those have to disclose their portfolios, and so you can see the names of where the money, but there are also a number of, you know, resources out there like As You Sow and all, where you can kind of learn about the overall portfolio and the companies in it, and, you know, really know what you own. So it's in some of those publicly traded investments, you can see kind of what the portfolio is. And I would say, and there are resources to do that, to kind of know what you own and make some changes. And then on the impact investment side, if you're looking at that in whether the public options or the private debt and equity options, I mean, I think all of them should be very clear, have very clear information on their portfolio, because again, it's something to be proud of, and you know, more of a differentiator for them. They're looking for investors that want that level of impact and want to see these great organizations beyond some of the bigger corporations that control or are getting most of the investments out there.
And from a personal point of view, if you do want to see what's in all of your different accounts, or if you're in mutual funds or funds of funds, if you open an account on greenportfolio.com, we actually can do a full audit across all of your accounts and give you a breakdown on like what percentage of your money is actually in oil and gas. It's surprisingly difficult to do without building your own spreadsheets and things like that. So we wanted to make it really simple for you to figure out what your money's up to. So feel free to, like, it's a tool at your disposal if you want to try it out. It's surprising if you just are in general just investing in ESG. An average ESG fund will have around 8%, 7-8% exposure to oil and gas, which most people don't realize exactly how ESG works. But it's hard to be an informed financial consumer, and even if you are informed, most people, a lot of their investments are done through their 401k or 403b, and so they have a limited choice in what they're actually able to put their money into, which can be very frustrating. So you can do advocacy work at your own company and ask for a better provider for your 401k or 403b. It is difficult. I'm not going to lie, but once again, at least they know someone cares and is looking and is watching. So the next time they go to re-up the contract with your retirement provider, perhaps hopefully they'll include better options for you. But most people also don't think about how the fact that you can roll over your 401k or your 403b, and after you leave if you switch jobs, and that immediately opens up your ability to invest in a variety, like basically the world that you can choose. You are no longer beholden just to the choices that were provided to you by your former employer. So I think that's also a really important first step for most people, is to look and see which accounts can I actually give myself more control over. And I think it's like such an important thing to do, just from a standpoint of managing your money anyways. You could be paying lower fees, choosing better products, all these things. So it's good to take a world view of your own money and start to kind of unravel what your options are.
Thank you. I just want to let the audience know that we're definitely seeing the questions, and there's definitely going to be a section at the end of the panel that basically you're going to be able to ask the panelists the questions. But kind of seeing the group chat and kind of seeing the conversation, I think the next question basically pertains to what we're discussing. But how can we identify and differentiate green-centered financial institutions from traditional ones? I'll go ahead and post that in the chat and then just let y'all take the stage.
Yeah, well, I think I'll start this time. I mean, I think again, when Green Portfolio offers a great tool, right? So you can see, what you're invested in now, and then open up the door to exploring better banking options, better investment options, things like that. I think that sometimes people do get concerned because they see some of the options out there as that are perhaps marketed as green, as not exactly the type of real climate justice that they want to support. And so you do need to be careful when you're looking for other options to make sure that it's not greenwash and it's really supporting the communities and the environmental initiatives that you want. But I think there are a number of tools, certainly Green Portfolio and other organizations out there that can help identify them. And it generally should be pretty clear which groups have been around and established a portfolio and a team and a process to really not only find green investments, but to really support them and help them really expand and build portfolios around that. So it depends, I think, somewhat of the pool you're looking for. Are you looking for a green bank or credit union? Again, are you looking for greener mutual funds options or ETFs? There are definitely tools that can help you identify that. Are you looking to kind of work outside of the public markets and really support development in your community, green jobs and community development locally? Are you trying to do renewable energy around the world? There are options out there, and I think both, of course, financial advisors can be the ones to provide real financial advice around this. We're not doing that today, as Bonnie said in the disclaimer. And there are other, increasing number of public tools like Green Portfolio that are great to kind of provide a lot of that intro legwork. That part of this why people don't move is that it's just so hard to get started. People don't spend a lot of time thinking about how can I move my investments. We're not always it's not seen as visual. It doesn't seem as fun, but it is really important work, and just kind of getting some of that harder to find research and education up front through her site and others is really important in making it a lot easier.
Yeah, and we have quite a bit of people that use our platform, wanted to make their money greener, and we're a good starting point. But we quickly realized that there's actually a lot of people out there that have been doing this for a long time. They have a depth of experience, whether it's running a bank or a credit union that's focused on being green or really supportive of the local community, all the way through to financial advisors who, for 20 years, 30 years, have been helping their clients manage their money with climate in mind. And so we're actually shortly going to be rolling out a new service connecting our users with financial advisors who that's all they do. And not only do they spent a lifetime figuring this out, but they might actually even do it in a way that is like attuned to how you might think of being climate friendly. So there's a lot of ways to be climate forward. Some people want to be activist investors. Some people just want to divest from oil and gas. Some people are looking to add nature-based solutions or local community solutions. And we have found that there are advisors out there who can really help to shape your money into not only a means of building your, meeting your future financial goals, but also like superpowering your money to actually be investing in the kinds of solutions that we all want to see for our children and grandchildren. So if anyone's interested in trying that out, we're looking for some beta users for August. If that's something you've ever thought about looking into, but there are truly financial providers out there who have built themselves from the ground up. It's not just an add-on green service that they just kind of throw together to placate a few customers. It's like all they do. And it's really great connecting with a provider you believe in like that.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Again, I feel like the conversation is happening so naturally, and literally the question, I feel like it's definitely on topic. But speaking about financial advisors, what questions should we ask when seeking advice on green investment options? So I'm going to go ahead and send that in the chat, and then y'all can take the stage.
Sure. I'm glad that we're talking about financial advisors because they can be really helpful. I guess they can be a gatekeeper or a gateway to impact in a lot of ways. And there are some that have really specialized in this and know the climate and social justice industries and the options out there can really help that, as Bonnie was mentioning. But I think that, one of the things that we found, and we think that there's an opportunity to get more advisors involved, is because it can also really help their practice overall, right? For advisors to kind of do more of this and learn more about it. It's helpful to their client relationships and conversations. It can, differentiate them in building their practice and help them hire younger talent with interest in these areas, and just generally sound like a nicer person, right? Just for bringing it up and kind of, aware of the growing interest and trends in this area. So I think there's a business case for more advisors to pay attention for them. And then in terms of if you're looking for advisors, I think, some of the questions to ask is, about that experience with impact investing and green options. So in addition to, what Bonnie has mentioned and what she's going to be piloting here, which is exciting, there are groups like USCIF and Values Advisor and all, where you can, find some of those advisors that are really experts in the space. But when you're talking with your advisor in the first time and all of that or early, really be clear on your focus in terms of what you're trying to do with your portfolio. And I think one of the things that's good to ask is whether they have experience investing outside of the public markets. Because if you're really looking to invest in measurable social and environmental impact, and that's much harder to do in the public markets. And so some folks can get discouraged with kind of only being, having mutual funds or ETF options. So I'd ask your advisor kind of that experience in impact investing, including in some of the, private options that are increasingly available.
Yeah, I would agree with that. An advisor should open you to more options, not reduce your options, right? And I'd like to throw out things you should not be doing with an advisor who, just because I've heard a lot of horror stories. And one is like, you shouldn't have to fight with your advisor to match your values with your money. They work for you, you're paying them, right? So if you're getting a lot of resistance, they likely aren't the right fit for you. So maybe you want to start thinking about that. The other thing you shouldn't be doing is you should not be educating your advisor on incorporating climate or green friendly options. I know that maybe you're like, why would she say that? The number of people I have met who have spent the last year or two, giving resources to their financial advisor, explaining why they don't want oil and gas, teaching their advisor how to manage with at least some capacity of green or climate in mind. It's way more common than you would think. And once again, I repeat to you, you are paying them, they work for you. You wouldn't go to a doctor where you had to explain the different kind of medical options out there, right? You would leave. You should also leave if you are having to explain to your advisor. It's one thing if you're like, hey, I heard about this interesting way of investing in XYZ, could you look into it? That's not what I mean. I mean, if from a broad point of view, they don't know what you're talking about, that is not the advisor for you. And you shouldn't be afraid of leaving. It's not as difficult as it might seem. And alternatively, if you're looking for an advisor, you should feel like it will be a good working relationship, and one where there is give and take, but they are bringing real expertise to the conversation, and not only meeting your financial goals, but also climate. They need to be able to do both of these things. Or if you have other values that are very important to you, climate is not the only thing in the world, but a good advisor should help you should be able to meet your risk tolerance. They should be able to understand, your forward plans for your money, as well as being able to meet you where you are with how you want your money to be invested. So please keep that in mind. Who's in charge? You're in charge. It's your money. Because there are good options out there, and there are many that you will enjoy working with.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so the next question will basically pertain around financial advisors, but this one is going to be a little bit different. So, understanding obviously the way how folks live in our society, in our world and whatnot, obviously there's some folks that find it very difficult to meet with financial advisors. It could be a barrier, it could be a challenge. So, in thinking about that, what are some practical steps anyone can take to increase their financial literacy in this area? So I feel like we wanted to also kind of, get about that as well, because I also feel like, seeing a financial advisor can be a barrier. So it could be one of those things where folks are like, well, I feel a little nervous, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can afford even seeing a financial advisor. But let me go ahead and post that question in the group chat, and then I'll let y'all take the stage.
Yeah, so my favorite ways is help people to start thinking about how to increase their own financial literacy. As I suggest before, and this is before you go see a financial advisor potentially, is one, for every account or investment you have, either they're paying you interest, right? Or you're paying them a fee. So for me, step one is figure that out. For every dollar you have, figure out, are they paying me money? If so, how much? And if you're invested in something, how much are you paying them? Right. And I think this is such an important first step, just for you to understand kind of, what's happening with your money. And this is before you even start looking at returns, et cetera. Because I think most people are really unaware of the fees they're either paying for their bank account or for their investments. or vice versa, like could you be getting a better interest rate somewhere else? So like, I think that's a really good, like kind of low stress way of just starting to get acquainted with your own money. And the other thing I would suggest is wherever you are investing or banking right now, not always, but often they will have someone who is not really a investment advisor per se, but they're more of like a financial planner who is willing to maybe once a year sit down with you for free as part of their services they offer at Schwab or wherever it is you bank, and just kind of look at where all your money is right now. And it depends whether or not they're willing to do this, but a lot of them are. A lot of them will at least give you kind of some sort of lower level analyst who will help you take stock of your money for free. And that will help you really decide if you need more money, need more help managing your money and your finances. But I think it's a really great way to start at least.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, another place where you can try to get some of that more intro financial advice is asking your employer. So many times, you know, whoever the advisory consultant is for the retirement plan, you know, they might come once a year, or maybe they're available a lot more often. They can spend some time, you know, just kind of helping you get to understand more about, of course, the retirement options there, but you can ask them other questions as well. They might be limited how much specific advice they can give you on other things outside of kind of their purview on that retirement account, but many of them will kind of help provide broader advice and resources around that. And if you're that is not something that you have access to, and you know, with a retirement plan, ask your employer for that, right? I mean, that's a great benefit and a pretty easy one to line up. And advisors would do that for free, just for the exposure to however many people are at that firm, right? And trying to do some more kind of investing 101 and financial literacy 101. And then, you know, other resources that you can look into on the more social and environmental justice side, you know, that are accessible to individuals include things like Green America, right, which is really about kind of helping individuals understand their economic power. And so they have, you know, all types of educational material and resources that are in pretty accessible language about, you know, really what we're talking about today, kind of understanding what you own, understanding what it might be doing against your values and causing some harm, and how you can start to make some of the changes, whether that's identifying an advisor or moving banking and investing accounts.
Talking to your employer is a really great idea. And also just so people are aware, if there are things you wanted your employer to change on the benefits side, whether it's adding on this ability to see a financial planner or a financial advisor, or changing, you know, XYZ in your retirement account options, a lot of employers have to have that all set by October, which is when, you know, people start choosing all their things. And so right around now is kind of the absolute last chance you have to try to add something for next year, right? It might even be too late, but because they generally do it in Q1 and Q2, they figure out what they're going to be offering at the end of the year for the following year. But if you have been thinking about bothering your HR for something like this, now is the last chance you really have to do it. So maybe chew on that for a minute and see, you know, if there was something in there that kind of jogs an action, because a lot of these services they can add on without really a lot of extra cost or effort. It's just a matter of them clicking a few boxes if people ask for it. So think about what maybe that could be an extra resource for you.
And you know, one of the things you mentioned, just kind of the barrier of meeting, one of the things that you can also propose to a financial advisor, if you start to look and see one, say, oh, that might be somebody that I would be open to talking to. It's easier for them to agree to a quick Zoom call or something like that, right? Than like a full-on meeting where you're going to bring information to them and they're going to start looking through that. I mean, that could be really helpful, right? But you can have an intro meeting of just to get to know you. Like, do we vibe? Or do I want to share more about myself and my goals with you? So you can find groups on advisors on the internet, but asking them for a quick 15-minute, you know, Zoom or a coffee if they're down the street type of thing, and just an environment and get to know you. Most of them would be open to that for sure.
Cool, cool. Thank you for that, Justin. Okay, so now knowing what we know and knowing all this information, so the next question I feel again totally adds to the conversation, but what immediate actions can we take to better understand our current financial institutions' investment practices? So we already have an idea of what they do, we already have an idea of what they're investing in, but what are some immediate things folks anywhere can just basically be like, okay, then let's get started. Let's start moving away, let's start divesting, let's invest into green-centered, institutions. But let me go ahead and post that question in the chat and then let y'all take the stage.
Yeah, so if I feel like we might have covered some of this in terms of the actions to understand the investments practices. I think there are tools like Green Portfolio that can help you learn that. There's like As You Sow and others on the public side. Mighty Deposits is another group kind of on the banking side that can help you understand kind of what's in there. And then I think as Bonnie led off, a good place to start in terms of when you're ready to make a change is with where you bank, because that's, we all, if we're fortunate enough to have income and savings, then we're going to need a bank or credit union that we want to support. And then from there, you can start to explore kind of your retirement accounts and the other impact options. And you can do that based on, really trying to be clear on what your interests are. And then looking for, more perhaps retail accessible options that are out there with some track records. Especially for the individuals, and then their advisors as well. If you feel like you want to make sure you get more professional financial advice before you start making any real money moves.
Yeah, I think that's a good game plan. And also just keep in mind, you don't have to do all of this today. It's something that can take a little bit to get everything set up. But then once you have everything set up, you have like a well-oiled, hopefully money-making green machine. All your dollars out there working for you, and hopefully climate. And but think about what like kind of small steps you can start taking, like just opening a new account. You don't have to start using it for everything right away, but at least like take the first step of picking like which one you're going to work with. Many of which have really great interest rates at the moment. There's a lot of really high interest rates of some of the credit unions and green banks right now. So it's a great time to switch if you're finding that your current bank doesn't have a very high interest rate.
Okay, cool, awesome. Alrighty, y'all, we're basically going to come to our last question. But before that, I just want to say again, thank you so much to both Justin and Bonnie. I think your insight was honestly, y'all like amazed me. I was like, oh my God, I just learned a couple of things so new and everything. But okay, so our last question. Do you have any final recommendations or resources you would like to share with our audience to further understand their green finances? I'll go ahead and post that in the group chat and then let y'all take the stage.
Good, Bonnie.
I mean, I want to go just like the plug Green Portfolio. It's like all we're up to day in, day out. But in general, I think an under-tapped resource also, which is kind of strange advice, but I think it is important also to talk to your like spouse or significant other. It's something a lot of people don't think about, especially if your money is joint. But they are a resource. If you get them on board, they can take half of the work of managing your money, and some of the effort it can take to figure out like kind of what to do with your money. But I think a lot of people don't kind of make it a joint decision, and that just makes it so much harder. So make sure that you kind of have gotten your spouse on board with like kind of what your values are and what you want your money to be doing for your family and for the world. I think it's a really great way to kind of make this more fun and maybe easier, hopefully.
Yeah. I think we've talked a lot of the initial resources throughout. I think maybe one thing to just highlight is that while people here are probably agreeing with what we're talking about. But the language we're using, I think, might really resonate more with the progressive social and environmental justice crowd. But I also think where your cash and investment sleep is relevant to everyone. So if you think economic development and job creation in your local area is important, and or your cold-blooded capitalist, whatever that means, just expects transparency from the institutions you work with and what they do with your money, then I think the real issues that we're talking about here in this webinar really matter. So I think one of the challenges for those of us here in the phone is to try to figure out how we can bridge some of those divides that we see. And I think there are different ways to talk about climate that is relevant to everyone and future generations and all of that. And I think the challenge on the investment side is just that I feel like people might think that, yes, I should spend some time on that, but it's just really hard to get started. They're kind of choosing to be a little apathetic about their finances. And so I think while, they don't have the same pressure to kind of change their banking and finances, because other people don't see that, right? But if they're at the farmer's market or they drive a green car, like kind of showing out your values a little bit more. But I think especially once you find good, more community development, financial institutions, and impact options and green options, you're going to see something in your portfolio and be given a lot of stories and impact that are going to be way better, bring a lot more joy to you and share with others than kind of just traditional finance that is not really producing any good impact or stories there. It's just providing a service. I think the service, the investment options exist that have a much better impact experience.
No, I totally agree with that. And yeah, it can be really rewarding to do this once you get going. But it does take a little bit of an impetus to go. And if you're not ready to do with your own money, keep in mind you might have influence somewhere else you haven't thought of, whether it is where you went to college. They have often piles of money sitting around invested in who knows what, or if you have a pension, you have some say sometimes over how that pension's invested, or even your local government. There are, in certain places, some real activists, comptrollers who are looking into how the money for your city is being invested when it's not in use. So that is also something to kind of keep in mind, that there might be other places that you can utilize these skills that you're building about managing finance with climate in mind. You can apply them to other places, larger pots of money. Once you have your own kind of financial house in order, I think it's a powerful tool once you understand what it is.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you again to Justin and Bonnie. I really appreciate your knowledge and insight. So now, since we have a few more minutes left and we basically kind of covered most of the questions, I do definitely want to open to Q&A, because as both of y'all seen, a lot of folks had really good questions. A lot of folks are really interested in really the work that both of you are doing. So what we can do now is basically just open it up to the audience. You can literally go ahead and directly talk to any of the panelists. Anybody can who's literally in the Zoom. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of open the audience and just kind of let folks just kind of ask their questions to y'all.
There were a few in the chat I saw coming along as we were going along here. I think the first was looking for talking points to engage conservative legislators. Not something I do very often, I have to say, but I do think kind of what Justin was talking to, and especially within the United States, the more conservative states actually are the real leaders in getting solar and wind installed. And that's because projects make really good economic sense. They have great returns. They lower inflation. There's, just a lot of local economic benefit. I think all of these conversations don't have to bring up climate change. They don't have to kind of even touch on some of these like more exciting touch points that upset people. If you're just looking, I think if you keep it really in terms of that's like one of the main things we have going for us when it comes to climate change, is that a lot of the projects and investments we want to make economic sense, especially as the cost of solar and wind has just plummeted. So that's what I would suggest, but it's certainly not my field of expertise.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's, while the kind of denialism of science and other kind of views kind of get some of the headlines, I think, fortunately, the majority of legislators, aren't denying the science as much. They just don't necessarily have a political incentive to kind of, get involved in these. They see a lot of political risks to kind of say, yeah, we do care about climate and these things. But if you, reframe it around economic development, and this is about, a greater longer term economy and quality jobs and all of that, I think you can actually get through them. And that's a big part of the Inflation Reduction Act's Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and things that we're happy to be involved in, and others. And I think a lot of that is going to be, how do we really make this clean energy transition kind of really understood and not scary and really beneficial to everyone, both for the healthier environment it can create, and for of course, the healthier environment create for the world, but to all of the cost savings, right? You can benefit from once you make some of these green improvements and better paying green jobs and more efficient buildings and things like that. I mean, the energy savings are also kind of a real economic financial incentive for folks to want to pay attention to this and consider these upgrades, we would call them, I guess.
What's next here? How can I get the word out about green financing to organizations who are already involved in climate action? I'm not quite sure if Penny, do you want to provide a little more color here? I'm not totally sure I understand your question.
So I used to work for an organization called Rural Action, and they have a directive for sustainable energy that they took over for something called Upgrade Ohio. We were able to get 0% financing for EV vehicles for the clients of a local credit union. And I think that Rural Action needs to be connected to you guys, and I'm not quite sure how to do that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd love to come meet with them, but it might be, I don't know, better fit for your organization, right, Justin? Don't you guys do a lot of work kind of facilitating those kinds of?
Right. I no longer work for them, and I don't
work for them.
Have the area, but I still see the need for a connection to green, to dream.org and to understanding how to use the funds that are available. And maybe they're already doing it. I thought I would send them an email, but I would love to make a direct connection somehow.
I'd certainly be happy to be connected, and happy to share my email, or the folks here at dream.org can, from the registrant, and if copying me in on that, well, I'm happy to follow up to see if there's an opportunity there.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and likewise, my LinkedIn's in the chat. If anyone wants to connect with me or do on LinkedIn, you can add people to your chat. So it's an easy way to do intros. I'm always happy to see if I can connect people within the climate space.
Yep.
I don't know where we were in the questions.
I think there was if we can share a list of vetted green banks or credit unions. Actually, that's a good question, is there?
Yeah, so I put on the our list for this year. It's in the chat. But then on our platform as well, we rated more entities and just the ones that we like. We have not rated every credit union in the country. We have not rated, there's a lot of banks out there. We are working to build a model that will allow us, an algorithm that will allow us to estimate some of these smaller entities. So we can try to rate banks at scale. But on the whole, if you're banking with a local institution, they're probably okay. I can't give a blanket statement to that, but most credit unions are not out investing in oil and gas projects. They might be financing cars, right? And more likely regular cars than EVs. So they might have loans in some more energy intensive kinds of things like that. But on the whole, they're still going to be better than like Chase or Citi or a lot of the entities that are actually out there financing oil and gas projects.
And there are resources on the community development financial institution banks and credit unions. So those are banks and credit unions that operate like other banks and credit unions, but they're just community focused, serving at least 60% of their financing to lower income communities. Some of them are also doing quite a bit in the green space, and with some of the new funding that is coming, many of them are getting trained to do even more green loans now. So I think it's an exciting time for the industry, where we're seeing a lot of the social justice, community development organizations come together with the climate justice work. And so I think it'll be a little more holistic and easier to find here soon.
Yeah, and these aren't entities that like just a regular individual can interact with, but on a state-by-state basis, green banks, which are generally run by it's like a state entity, they've gotten a big boost with legislation lately and are expanding. And these green banks are really important because they kind of do a lot of the behind the scenes underwriting of projects that have some sort of climate positive effect, and they lower the risk for kind of newer projects or things of that nature, and make it so that eventually solar or EV loans, etc., will just be kind of part and parcel of what every bank does. But we're really seeing those expand, and they could potentially, depending on what state you're in, and if you're looking for financing for a project, that could be a place for, depending where you work or what you're working on, that could be a resource for you to tap into. So if you just like look up your state and then green bank, you can see not every state has one, but many of them do, and many of them have been expanding and doing a lot of really interesting work lately.
Great. Just to be clear, they're not banks and the FDIC insured.
It is very
bank.
confusing.
They don't have checking and savings accounts, but yes.
They should have chosen some other name besides
Yes.
green, because the number of people is like, I can't get Connecticut Green Bank to open me an account. And I'm like, well, no, that's not really what they do. But yeah, they are not like a standard brick and mortar bank with deposits. They do like this important work of underwriting loans for projects and things like that.
Okay, let's see. I believe the next question is. Oh, I think we covered them. Unless anybody from the audience has one more question. If anybody wants to ask one.
I saw one here about beyond kind of personal investments. How can we attract funds from banks to invest in the projects? I guess, Troy, a lot of it depends on the types of projects that you're looking to do. But if they are community development, economic development oriented, there are a lot of community development financial institutions, including nonprofit loan funds throughout the country, that are looking to support great projects. There's an increasing number of financing coming in many states for small business lending, and that's exciting, in addition to all of the green lending. But I think some of it depends a little bit on the projects where you are and where those projects are based, in terms of which potential financiers, institutions can try to look at that and get to those projects. But again, happy to follow up on some more direct thoughts and referrals on that.
I appreciate the information. I would like to follow up. We are involved in economic community development projects in the disadvantaged communities.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. My email's in the chat. If you want to send me kind of where you are and everything, or where the projects are based, then I'm happy to provide some more specific thoughts.
And I believe we'll be sharing out both of your contact informations in a follow-up email too. So In case you don't catch it in the chat, we'll send this information out afterwards.
Okay, cool. I'm also just going to post my email too as well, just if anybody wants to get in communication with us at dream.org. But alrighty, folks, we are basically at our wonderful webinar panel. Again, I want to just say thank you so much to both Justin and Bonnie for joining us, to providing us this wonderful insight and knowledge. Honestly, y'all are doing the good fight. You know, climate change, the climate crisis is coming for all of us, but if we all work together, we can honestly tackle it together. But yeah, again, thank you so, so much. It was a wonderful time. And again, for the whole audience, thank you so much for joining us. Like Tori said, we're going to follow up with an email and then just let any folks know, like, you know, with this recording and then just any of the things that we just discussed. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again. And everybody have a wonderful day. It's Wednesday. Enjoy and thank you.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.
Yeah, it was great. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.